Hello, hello.
Hey, what's up? How's it going?
Pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Okay, with this whole thing, I know you said that you don't want to talk about the drama surrounding the deepfake stuff, but I made a Pepe Sylvia tier chart for it, and I wanted to get your opinion.
Sure. Link me.
I can. Sent you a picture of it in the DMs.
Um. Okay. Hold on. Can I link this on stream?
Yeah. So I was just like kind of going through and seeing like what is weird, what is normal, right? I think there's some things that are weird and normal, like the idea of a dude like jerking off to a safe for work picture that maybe he sees on Instagram, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's weird, but I think it's more normal than we'd like to admit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's like necessarily morally wrong unless you go up and tell her about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But making deepfake porn of somebody, I have actually changed my mind on this. I think that making deepfake porn of someone is weird, but morally neutral unless you tell other people about it or other people know about that deepfake porn. If it's just something that you have for your own personal use, I have no problem with it.
Okay.
I disagree.
Hi. What's up, Pixie? Wait. Did you start? Did you have anything you wanted to get out of your get off
No,
your
I
chest?
mean
Right now,
I
or
was
is that...
just I was just getting that off my chest.
Well, well, hold on. What changed your mind? You can't just say I changed my mind and then not say what changed your mind. What changed your mind?
Previously I thought making deepfake porn of somebody else is wrong because you don't have their consent. But what changed my mind is I started thinking about how often do we seek people's consent when we when we think about them, right? When we think normal things about them. We don't need consent to think about people. And certainly there are a lot of people in the world who don't get people's consent before they like jerk off to the thought of them, right? So making deepfake porn of somebody, as long as it's only for your your personal use and nobody else gets access to it, then I guess I don't really see what would be wrong with that. I guess it's kind of like an expression of your thoughts.
Okay. I don't.
Why? Because I'm not delusional.
Um,
At the time, there was.
I don't have ultra strong thoughts on this yet, so I'm listening and I'm learning. But okay, I'm acknowledging what you're saying. Gotcha. What did you want, Pixie?
So I kind of disagree with the take that it's like morally neutral as long as the person doesn't know about it. And the reason why I think this is because I do think there's a difference between just using your imagination and then purposely trying to make it as close to a physical reality as you possibly can.
Wait, can you specify what close to physical reality? What does that mean?
It means that you know you're never going to get into that person's pants or whatever, or be able to see them in that sexual context. Like they're not going to make that content. So you're going to make it as realistic as you possibly can to see them in that context in real life, like a physical proponent to it, than just imagining it in your head. You're actually materializing something.
Why is it any worse to like draw something or deepfake something versus imagining it?
Because it seems like this is a kind of complicated to explain. It seems like there's a barrier or boundary that you cross when you're just imagining something versus actually taking steps to it. So a similar example, I guess, or analogy or whatever, would be the difference between like intrusive thought, or not even intrusive, like let's say like, oh, like I want to kill this person, like they're annoying me, versus writing it down in your notebook exactly how you're going to do it, buying the knives, buying the rope, buying all the materials you possibly
Right.
need.
But buying those materials is not it doesn't seem analogous to making a deep fake porn of
Wait,
somebody.
wait, 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 wait. Let's back up. Let's just focus on this initial thing. I think that this is disanalogous because an intrusive thought versus a highly detailed plan are two different things. If you had an
Well,
intrusive thought and you wrote those intrusive thoughts down, I think that would be similar, but I don't think people would care either way. So, for instance, let's say that I thought that, like, I hate this person, I want to kill him, and I just had a notebook where I wrote down intrusive thoughts. I don't think anybody would care that much about the difference between the two, unless they found it. They might figure it's kind of weird, but
Well, the point is that when you're making a deepfake, you are taking it a step further. You're actually to me, the deepfake, actually making the deepfake, is going from just thinking it in your head, writing it down privately, to material steps to then commit the murder or whatever.
what do you mean? What is committing the murder in this analogy, though? Like raping the person or having sex with them, or
It's getting as close as you possibly can. So you might not actually rape the person, but the point is that you don't really care about whether they're comfortable being seen in that specific light or not. You're trying to get as close as you can
what?
instead of
I don't understand how deep fake gets you any closer to having sex with a person
no
as
viewing them in that sexual, or not viewing them in that sexual light, viewing them in that, or maybe intimate light is the right word. I'm not sure. But for example, when you're doing the deep fake porn, when you're putting that person's like face on there, rendering it so that the images like match the face, all that shit, you are basically, you'd want to see porn of them. You'd want to record it if you could. You'd want the real thing, but you can't get the real thing. And instead of being content with that or making it stay in your imagination, you feel like you have to take actual steps in reality to see that, even though they're not comfortable with that.
I guess I'm just not saying how that's
Yeah,
meaningfully different than having like a detailed fantasy of that person.
yeah, you don't ask people's consent to fantasize about them.
You don't feel like there's or you don't see like there's a difference between just, oh, in your mental realm versus putting the work and the effort and the time in to make it some sort of physical reality.
I think a lot of people, I think there are, so the example that got me thinking about this is there are a lot of dudes, I'm sure, and ladies who have jerked off to like a safe for work picture of somebody that that person has posted on social media, right?
I assume so, sure.
Yeah, and generally it's not. I hear an echo. That's generally not like it's not an issue unless you tell somebody that you did that, right? It only becomes weird when you tell that person, but you don't ever ask for that person's consent when you do something like that. Like most like young people who are doing stupid stuff like that, they don't think about whether the person wants to be objectified, wants to be sexualized by them. They just are in their head. Um, so I just don't see if somebody makes a deep fake and it's only for their own personal use and nobody else ever sees it. I it's something that they did in their own privacy and with their own thoughts.
Okay. I'm about to. The line or the scenarios I'm going to propose to you guys are going to seem completely different and out of nowhere, but I promise they'll tie together. Um, let's say you have a friend, they sleep naked, you're staying in the same house or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and you go at night and you take a photo of them naked
Mm-hmm.
and they never find out. Would that be okay?
No,
Why would it not be okay?
because you're like actually taking a picture of them for something that I imagine they're trying to conceal.
Okay. Now let's say it turns out that, it was night, it was dark, it was a mannequin. It turns out the person wasn't sleeping in that bed, they were sleeping somewhere else. But you took a photo of the mannequin instead, but you thought it was that person. Would it be okay then?
No.
Why?
The intentionality of the action still makes the action itself wrong. The outcome is almost irrelevant. So, for instance, let's say I really wanted to murder somebody and I walked into a bedroom and I started stabbing a bed, but it was just a bunch of pillows. The action was still attempted murder, in my opinion. So this would still be you doing a wrong thing. I guess the ultimate outcome wouldn't have been a bad thing committed, but the action itself was still probably wrong.
Okay. So to me, it's the action of creating deepfakes, not necessarily the jerking off to it, that is wrong. Because the action of creating a deepfake is literally trying to place the image as realistically as possible to see that person nude, even though they don't want to show you themselves nude.
Yeah, but you're not seeing them nude. You're just fantasizing about it.
This is a
Right?
technicality, right?
Well, no,
Because
no,
the
no.
whole-
Hold on, wait. It's not a
wait.
technicality. It is like the most important point. Because if this
Okay.
was capturing a nude photo of somebody, I think ubiquitously we would all say this is a creep shot. It's a candid image. That's bad. I don't think it's a technicality. I think it's probably one of the most important central points of this whole thing, right?
Yeah, no, but the reason why I perceive it as a technicality is because the whole idea is that your brain is not actually processing this deep fake as a separate person. You're not just processing this as like, oh, the body of a separate porn star and then the face of, you know, the streamer I want to see. You're processing it as a streamer. Otherwise, there would have been no reason to create the deep fake in the first place. The
Yeah,
reason
but like, but
that
the
your
but
face on there is to try to is because your brain is processing it as that person.
sure, I understand, but I think it's still meaningfully different. Like if nude pictures of somebody got leaked and then nude deepfakes of somebody got leaked, I think that the feeling would be completely different. Like, yeah, like the deepfakes would be bad and people would be annoyed at that, but like the nude pictures would be actual images of them.
Yeah, and I would say it's not the idea that this is that they're perceiving this as the streamer isn't the part that is the issue. The issue is, are you involving somebody in a sexual act that they didn't consent to? If you are just jerking off to like pictures of a deep fake that you made on your own time, you're not involving that other person. But if you tell them about it, or if you actually have their actual nude pictures, then you are involving them in it.
Okay, there's like two separate arguments going on. There's one that's like, okay, this is not bad because the consequence, it only matters basically if it's a consequence of them getting hurt. If they don't get hurt, no harm, no foul. I think the action in itself is wrong because I think even if the person doesn't find out, you're still trying to get an image of them that they wouldn't be okay with either way.
I don't know how you're not. I don't know how you can't retroactively think that like if you apply that there, then fantasizing about someone necessarily follows as being wrong, right? Like I don't want to have sex with you, and I don't want you to think about having sex with me, but you're doing it, and you're imagining a scenario that I don't even want you to imagine. How could that not be the next thing?
Well, I think it. To be fair, I do think that's kind of wrong. Especially if the person has voiced, "Oh, I don't want to be seen this way. Like, I don't want people to jerk off to me this way," and you're still doing it. Then yeah, like I still think it's wrong. But I think there's still like degrees of wrong, right? I think one can be okay, like it's creepy, whatever. You shouldn't do that. But then there is taking more physical steps where it becomes like even more grossly wrong. So I think.
Do you think that all forms of like fantasies against somebody's consent would be considered wrong? So, for instance, I'm going to assume that you don't want somebody to murder you, but let's say I get really fucking annoyed talking to you, and in my head I have like a detailed fantasy of like I want to fucking kill you. Is that like morally wrong because I'm doing a fantasy that person wouldn't consent to in real life, or because I feel like at that point like all fantasies where the person wouldn't in real life allow it basically become wrong at that point?
I think fantasies where you are basically harming the person in a way, or that could lead to harm to the person, realistically would be considered wrong. So I feel like even if you're, fantasizing about a consensual sex with somebody else, if that person is like, oh my God, if that, well, you know, that's technically not possible because they've said it to you many times. Oh no, like I'm not okay with this. This is something I'm not okay with. I don't think all fantasies are wrong either. I'm trying to think about how to phrase this.
I think that's kind of where you're at, though. You're at essentially that like fantasies are wrong. Most fantasies are usually things that other people don't consent to, right? That's kind of why they're fantasies. It might be like killing somebody, it might be fucking somebody, it might be owning someone in a work argument or at school or something, or running over a teacher if you hate him, right? Like most fantasies are generally things, or a lot of fantasies at least, are generally things that we can't do in real life because people wouldn't be okay with it. But I feel like we're in a weird world where like we've created, I guess when I think of bad actions, I'm trying to usually think of like some type of either harm or like attempted harm. And I just don't see like, I don't see any harm here at all. Like who's getting hurt? And hurt here can be like a violation of somebody's like autonomy as well. So like breaking into somebody's house, breaking into somebody's car, getting a picture of like somebody's body, like doing something like that, like their person. Like I could extend harm to mean those things too, but when we're talking about things that exist like purely in the mind or things that don't involve like violating the other person's autonomy.
But you don't think it's an attempt at all? Because I think like, oh yeah, like you're trying to get as close as you can to see that person's body or to see them in that sexual context.
When you say get as close as possible, I feel like there's a big intuition pump where that sounds bad. Getting as close as possible to seeing somebody naked, that sounds really bad. But I think that's because what you're pumping there is the feeling of like getting a picture of them coming right out of the shower, or getting a picture of them coming right out of a locker room, or taking a picture. Like, that's what it feels like when you say getting close to. But in this sense, we're not actually getting close at all. If anything, you could say you're getting farther away from it, because now you're focused on like doing a drawing or a picture rather than getting more like real pictures of them. So that phrase, like getting close to, feels not good. Yeah.
And also, if anything, the underlying porn star, or like the producers of the original porn, with, you know, the people underneath the face that you've replaced, if anything, those people have had their intellectual property possibly like violated, right?
Well, I think legal arguments are a totally separate thing, right?
Yeah, it could be still like seen as like not morally good.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I guess it doesn't seem like such a big jump, because you're already going, you're already violating that person's boundary in a way of using their images, not just using their images in a way that they didn't consent, but you're actually rendering them onto something that is completely like beyond. I guess it kind of, maybe I'm just repeating myself, but it just seems like if a fantasies and okay, here I have it. If fantasies and like deep fake porn are basically the same thing, then why aren't people satisfied with just the fantasy? Why do they have to go to the extent of creating a deep fake porn?
Well, when you say basically the same thing, we're also intuition pumping. They're basically the same thing in that they're in the same category of thing, right? Like, compared to a horse, a Volkswagen and a BMW are basically the same thing. They're cars, right? But Volkswagen cars and BMW cars are way different, right? Much the same that, like, for a fantasy, like a deep fake and jerking off to the thought of somebody is the same thing, in that they're both fantasies, but the two fantasies are different, whereas some fantasies are better than others. A fanfic or a deep fake is going to be better than like an image in your mind or like an Instagram picture, right?
Okay, why do you think it's better?
Probably because there's more stimulus. You get like a visual component as well.
Okay, I think that might be where like the biggest contention lies for me, because it's this whole idea of like, oh yeah, it's not just more stimulus, but it's, and maybe it's just, we're just going in circles and it's just an intuition pump, but it seems like taking the steps to get that more stimulus is already crossing a line, rather than just having it be in your head.
What if somebody's like scrolling through somebody's Instagram to try to find like the sexiest bikini pictures possible? Is that like bad, or?
Yeah, I think that's weird.
Well, I didn't ask weird. Don't care about weird. I'm asking if it's like immoral. Bad.
Yeah, I think if you're, I think I have to think about this a little bit more, but I feel like there is something bad about going to somebody's Instagram and trying to find the sexiest photo of them to jerk off to.
So is every like 14-year-old boy who like jerked off to his favorite like his favorite pop star, have they done something morally wrong now?
Yeah,
Like
I think from her point of view, yeah, I would say so. Wait, here's something I'm interested though. What is the difference between digging through pictures for sexual gratification versus digging through just for like aesthetic enjoyment? Like, so for instance, you would say it's bad to dig through a girl's like bikini photos to go jerk off them on Instagram. Would it be bad for a girl to just go like look at old pictures of a guy because she thinks he's really hot, but she's not going to masturbate to it?
Yeah, no, that's a societal question.
Wait, no, wait, hold on, not societal. I'm asking you particularly what you think.
I know, I'm gonna segue into that. Just give me a second to preface. Okay. So I think as a society as a whole, we have like very intimate or personal beliefs when it comes to the idea of sex and sexual relationships. We classify that as a category that is very separate from just looking at someone or just seeing something as interesting or fun to look at or hot or whatever. There's a level of intimacy there that I don't think is there when it comes to just pure like general aesthetic purposes.
I think I would break down all of these words because I think it's important to figure out what you mean when you say this. There's an intimacy to a sexual act, but not to porn, I don't think, or fantasies.
I think when you're consuming porn with the intent of that porn being I guess maybe not, because there's like, well, I guess, oh, this is so complicated because you have porn stars, right? Whose job is to produce porn, and it's okay to watch them in that context. But that's because they're marketing themselves towards that way. So I don't know if there's really an intimacy in watching a porn star. I think there is intimacy in watching someone that usually doesn't do that stuff, because they're showing you a
Well,
side
let's
of
define
themselves.
when you say intimacy, what do you mean by intimacy? Let's define that.
It means that it is more personal because they are, or they are showing they're showing a side of themselves that they usually wouldn't show other people.
Okay, but they're
So
not actually showing you that. You're imagining it, right? Like, does a
yeah,
photograph, like, let's say I look at a picture of somebody in a swimsuit and then I masturbate to it. Did the photograph become more intimate because I masturbated to it?
no. But what I think, or the reason why my brain is processing these two things differently than a deep fake, is that when it comes to a deep fake, you are literally rendering the previous images of a person onto a porn star body so you can view them as like that porn star as said person,
Yeah,
versus
but
just a random image.
sure.
It's like there's an intentionality there.
Yeah, of course.
Um,
You're intending to, yeah, because you want to masturbate to it. I'm just trying to figure out, like, I'm trying to figure out how the person is being harmed. Like, where's the harm?
Well, I like, at least what I'm thinking is that there's kind of something really unsettling over the fact that you don't want to be perceived like this by the vast majority of people, and you know it's going to happen anyways, whatever. But then people are trying to take it, and I know you're saying this is intuition pump, but it really does seem like there's a difference in level here.
Do you
Where
think
people,
that when you say people are worried about the perception of others, do you think you have a right to the perception of yourself in other people's minds?
not 100%, but you do have a right to how your image is, like, to an extent. So for example, I'm thinking about like Ariana Grande and the fact that she sued Forever 21 for like $10 million because they used her image for their products, for their
Yeah, that's
marketing.
boring legal shit, of course. Yeah,
No,
that's
no, no. I know that's boring legal shit. But the reason why I bring it up is because it seems like we as a society acknowledge to a certain extent that you have a right to how your image is used in certain contexts. Maybe not all contexts, but in certain contexts.
Well, yeah, but that another reason why I say boring legal stuff is because this isn't like a public like profit setting too. Like privately, you could probably do whatever, but in a public profit setting, it's gonna be different, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So the Forever 21 is a very public, using something for a very public use and even profiting off of it. Whereas using something like making a deep fake that only you yourself have, that only you yourself use, that nobody else is going to have, is very different.
Okay, so to you guys, if the person developed this completely in their computer, away from all eyes, whatever, nobody else is ever going to find out about this, it would be okay.
Yeah, as long as nobody else knows about it or is aware of it. I kind of view it the same way as like the dude who like draws hentai of girls he likes or something. Like, it's weird, but I don't think it's necessarily wrong unless you start telling those girls that what you're doing, essentially, or
Um,
telling friends.
this is going to sound completely out of left field, but I'm honestly just curious. Do you feel similarly about somebody who draws like super like photorealistic child porn or something like that, but they keep it to themselves? They're not like bringing that outside or anything.
I think that no, I don't feel the same way about that. I feel like you're encouraging somebody to partake in something bad, I guess.
Well, but
No,
how do you not walk right into a trap when you say that though?
Like, what do you mean?
If CGI child porn encourages people to go rape kids, how does CGI deepfakes
I
not
don't
encourage
know- I
people to
don't
go
know
have sex with the people they're deepfaking?
I don't know if it's encouraging people to go rape people, but I think it's wrong to do that. Period. Right? I think it's wrong to do that. Period, because those people are incapable of consenting, and
Well, there's nobody consenting. It's just an image, right?
yeah, but I don't know. I feel like as adults we kind of expect our images to even be out there. We post our images out on social media all the time, right? I think that there's a difference there.
Wait, I don't know what the difference is. If you do a CGI picture of a kid, there's nobody being hurt. The person wants to
Yeah,
jerk
but
off
the
to it.
kid, but the kid has not like gone through the world and put their picture on social media and stuff like that.
Well, no. If it's a completely like CGI'd kid, I don't think. Wait, Pixie, were you
Like a
talking about a
made up?
deep fake of a kid, or were you talking about a?
Like, I think either one kind of works.
So if it's a picture of a
I'll
kid,
have to think about it. I
Uh-huh.
will have to think about it for sure. Like I definitely don't like the idea of that. So it's a good point.
I don't know. I think there is something to be said about even doing these actions in private can lead to being more okay with, like, I guess, like casually like sexualizing women in real life. Um, I feel like there is a connection, but I would have to like think about it more or research more. Um, because even just consuming regular porn has an effect in your real life. So I feel like taking the steps to deepfake a person's photo onto porn is going to affect how you just visualize or talk to that person, or what actions you might take towards that person.
Maybe, but then I feel like that becomes an argument against like basically all pornographic images.
But you don't think there's a gray sliding scale here? You think it's all, because I feel like I'm not saying it's super clear where the scale is.
Well,
I'm
I
just
don't think you believe that argument is what I would say. So for instance, if I could say, let's say that I can demonstrate with 100% pure godlike scientific evidence, I'm God, and I can tell you that people jerking off to deepfakes will actually have absolutely no impact on people's views on those women changing or pursuing anything in real life. I don't think that would move your argument at all. I don't think you'd feel any differently about it. So that's why I feel like this is a non-point.
I don't know. I think it's because I view it very similarly to the like nude example, or the, oh, you took a photo of the mannequin instead of like an actual lady, because it's I think like there is something with the intentionality.
Well, but that's
of going
way
with that.
different because taking the picture of the mannequin, you tried to take a picture of the real person. Deep faking is
But
not.
you don't think
Can I
these people
propose?
would jump on it if it was, or you don't think if these people had an opportunity, they would take a picture of the real person?
Yeah, but a lot of people that even don't masturbate to deepfakes probably would. I mean, yeah,
Can I-
there's a ton of
Yeah,
guys that would like
it's
try to
a
like sneak a peek
situation.
of a woman like in a bathtub or a shower or a locker room. Or that's why we have different areas. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so it seems like since they can't do that because they're not close enough to that person or whatever, this is the second best thing they're settling for.
Yeah, just like porn is the next best thing to sex. That's why people jerk off to porn, is because they can't find people to fuck sometimes.
Could I propose a situation? So let's say that somebody is really interested in a girl, but they can't get like pictures of that girl, and it's not like they would try to anyways. But they find out that the girl's twin sister is like a porn star. Is looking at the porn of the twin sister, and imagining the sister, like, is that bad?
You're saying imagining the twin sister as an actual sister?
Yeah.
Um, I think so. I view it similarly to the way that I view okay, so you have parody porn or whatever, which is its own like little gray classification. And then you have, if you theoretically had a porn where, let's say, a porn star who her whole career is trying to be as close to the streamer as possible. So she has her room set up like that streamer. She makes her hair look like that streamer. She uses the same, phrases that streamer uses, like everything as much as possible, and is producing that porn. Then I think like that's wrong, because you're essentially trying to take that image, and sexualize it for yourself or whatever. That was very bad phrasing. But I think when it comes to the twin sister example, if you're viewing that as the twin you want to fuck or whatever, I do think there's something wrong there. If it just happens to be somebody who looks like the twin sister or the twin, am I phrasing this correctly? I feel like I'm not phrasing.
Yeah, that's
myself
pretty
correctly.
if I like throw a spooky phrase at you, do you just not care? Because what we're talking about is essentially like we're really talking about thought crimes here. Do you not care? Like, do you think that some thoughts like should be immoral just by virtue of only having the thought alone, or do you not?
I would draw a separation between thought and actual actions. So there's a difference between just like thinking somebody is hot. And this is why I also even think the twin example doesn't completely work, because you can say like that's weird or that's not the best thought, but thoughts are more malleable, they change. Some are intrusive, some are not. But then there's a difference between that and between being like, I am actually going to take the time of my day to get this image of a person, render like onto a porn star's face, like match the actions so I could just jerk off to it. Like, you are taking concrete physical steps in the world that go beyond the mental realm, where the mental realm is just a lot more malleable, comes and goes. You can't have nobody can have like perfect thoughts or live like a completely like morally
What about
pure.
yeah? But I feel like you're loading on. I'm going to use the G word, gish galloping. I feel like you're loading on a bunch of arguments where none of these things you truly believe in that much. So like when you say like the thoughts are imperfect, like what about somebody with photographic memory? Would it be immoral for them to jerk off to somebody since they have a perfect recreation of that person in their head? I don't think you would. I don't think, does that meaningfully change things for you? Or I don't think photographic memory is even real, but let's say it was. Like, would it be immoral for that person to masturbate to women?
It just maybe this is just something I have to like read more about and explain more about. But to me, there just seems to be a very stark difference between what you're thinking and versus what you're putting out there. So I think if something is staying like into the mental realm, even if it's perfect memory, whatever, to me there is a distinction or a line to be drawn there versus taking a physical act or more physical actions.
What about really detailed fan fictions?
Yeah, that's a good one.
I think really detailed fan fictions comes into a more like morally gray area as well.
Well, why is it
So
gray?
yeah, there are a lot of girls who like growing up will like be fans of boy bands and stuff, and they'll write like detailed fan fiction about their favorite characters and stuff like that. So like that could be a very good example of like somebody taking their thoughts and putting it and like expressing it in the real world, but it's still not something that goes beyond their own use.
Well, I'm
Um,
curious. Yeah, I'm curious what you mean by morally gray. Like, explore that, because it seemed like you were willing to say that scrolling through a person's Instagram looking for bikini pictures to masturbate to, that was wrong. But so if you're willing to take a stance on that, how is the detailed fanfic thing morally gray? I feel like that would be an easy like, oh, that's just wrong.
I think this just goes back to the fact that our brain processes images and words differently. So, for example, when you read a book, your imagination can take control. Oh my God, so many people are calling. Okay, your imagination takes control, right? You fill in a bunch of blanks, even if you try to be the most detailed as you possibly can. Um, your imagination is still taking over control to some extent. That's why people can read two of the same book and then still have different images of what exactly happened versus an actual image. Your brain is just directly processing that image.
Yeah, but it's all still like, I don't see how the jump is meaningful. Like when you look at a person in a bikini, you're using your imagination there too as well, right? You're probably not imagining the person in the bikini. You're looking at them in the bikini so that you can imagine them naked.
Yeah, and this goes back to the fact that I think it's like a sliding scale, or that's why I'm keep like looping back to the whole, oh yeah, like it's trying, and I feel I want to like explore this phrase more because I feel like there is something there to the whole like trying to get as close as possible, because I think there is a level where it's like, okay, like, this is like fairly harmless, it's just like, in your imagination, or you're using like the picture or whatever, but there's not that level of intentionality.
Well, yeah, careful with some of the words, because the intentionality is there. It's still the same intentionality. It's just a different amount of effort being put in, right? Like, I'm a shit artist. If I wanted to draw porn of somebody, it's going to be fucking stick figures. But if somebody who's a better artist can draw a better picture, the intentionality is still exactly the same. One person is just more technologically adept than I am.
Okay, so yeah, maybe the right word is the effort to put in, to have that fantasy be as realistic as possible.
I have the similar position to Pixie, but I came in to bite an even harder bullet, I think. And I don't think you should jerk off fantasizing to women. Is that your position, Pixie? Or is that more extreme?
I think that's a little bit more extreme. But I think most porn is unethical. I think the only ethical porn might be like OnlyFans or shit like that. So maybe I'm on the same boat as you, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't think you should even jerk off.
Okay, relax. But I don't agree with pornography because that's creating a direct product, but I'll get into that in a second. The harm, Destiny, you were talking about harm. I think the harm in fantasizing about women and jerking off to them, I think is baked into the social contract. Because if we're saying that by participating in society, meaning just existing, gives people carte blanche to kind of objectify and sexualize you even in their minds, I don't think we can justify that.
I mean, I would flip.
Like policing somebody's mind, though. You can't. Like in that same. Just because they have the ability to do that in their head doesn't mean that we have any right to say what they can and can't do in their head.
Yeah, I would flip it, and I would say that I would live in a society where you don't have a right to dictate my thoughts.
That's.
I feel like
I think it's okay.
Okay, I gotta
I could
go.
be wrong, though.
It was nice talking to you guys.
Oh,
See you
really
later,
now?
alligators.
Wow.
Yeah, it
good talk.
was.
Wow. Wow. Okay, Pisco, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, how do you feel about deepfake porn?
Oh boy. I think that there's room for regulation when it comes to the identity stuff, because I think that this is only going to get better, and I think that there's going to be an interest in
Wait,
us.
stop. Hold on.
Yeah.
Don't care about profiting any of that shit. I'm thinking from a moral level. How do you feel
from
that
a
somebody
moral-
could make, so do you think it's wrong if I take your face and then I generate like a photorealistic CGI body and all that shit and I put it on there? Yeah, I deepfake you and I start masturbating to it.
Okay. If it is wrong, it's only wrong because of our interpersonal relationship and our expectations, just like it would be wrong for me to, like, if you say, hey, I don't want you to, have any sexual thoughts about a significant other of mine, it would only be wrong if there was an implicit or actual agreement or an expression, and it would only, I think, be wrong and like if you were hurt by it and there was like an expectation that I was
Okay,
doing
let's
something
go.
that.
Sure, let's run through some of these because there's a lot baked into
Yeah.
this, right? Some of these I think sound okay. Some of these sound wholly unreasonable. So when you say, first of all, I don't think we need to draw a big distinction between explicit and implicit. So for instance,
Sure.
I don't think any girl has ever told me ever, I don't want you to deep fake porn me. I don't think anybody's ever said that to me before, but they all
Yeah.
probably would feel that way, right? So implicitly, there's probably a lot of assumptions we can draw about what an average person would reasonably assume they would want another
That's
person to do,
correct.
right?
Yeah.
But now you're saying it only matters based on the relationship of the person? How does that work? Why? So I can deep fake a stranger but not a friend? Yeah.
By the way, I want everyone to know this is my first foray into this topic as well, and so if I say something that I know that I very often sound very confident, but if I mess up, I'm
No, it's
sorry.
okay. My first way was to laugh at the victims a ton, so you're good.
Oh,
Go
boy.
ahead.
Yeah. So
Based.
I'm very concerned about having a rule that is too over inclusive, that includes things like I don't know, an artistic rendition or a comic book or something like that, where, is it in poor taste? Yeah, but there's a lot of pornography that's in poor taste. There's a lot of parody that's in poor taste. There's a lot of things that you can say about people that's in poor taste that I would say, like it's wrong probably to do, like, to make fun of someone, right? It's wrong to call me a sleepsini soy boy, but
Oh no.
I can say it's wrong because I don't want to be called that. But what do I make of that, right?
Sure.
What am I to say about that?
Real
Like,
quick,
yes, I could say it's wrong. But
Somebody in chat had a really good thought experiment, and I thought I wrote it down on my other monitor, and I must have deleted it. Fuck, can somebody find... There was a really interesting question that was being posed in chat, and no, I don't remember what it was. I think it was like 40 minutes ago. Fuck. Okay, sorry. Do you think that there's something special or different around, like, the sexual component? Because it feels like... Yeah, go ahead.
yes, because people consider it different, and so if people consider it different, it's circular, right? People do consider what is sexual to raise the stakes. Like if you were trying to compare sexual assault and regular assault, as you've noticed, right? That comparison, it just breaks people's minds, right? And that's one way to find out whether or not, if you were to compare sexual assault to robbery, like armed robbery, there are people who will reject that comparison on the basis that there's a category error. So
fuck.
What?
Okay, I understand what you're saying. Because we have a different category. Fuck. I don't remember who it was, but I remember the hypothetical. This would have been more a question for Pixie, though. Let's say that but Pixie seemed like she was going to say just fantasizing about somebody, period, was wrong. Somebody in chat had a question of, have you ever seen the, what's the one Jim Carrey movie with the girl and he loses her forever?
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yeah, that one. What if those people existed in real life, kind of like an opposite version, where you could like go into somebody's brain and construct like perfect dreams? What if you constructed like a perfect dream, a fantasy of like deep fake fucking somebody?
I was wondering about if in the future there was like some machine, just like a VR thing, and you could just summon it up from your imagination.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Steven. I think that the problem is when the other people find out about it, right? If you're doing some kind of thing, like if you're just thinking about it, right? It's very unlikely that anyone's going to find out that you're just fantasizing in that way. You agree with that, right? But I think we'd all agree that if someone were to come up to a woman and say something like, I fantasized about you last night, that would be a wrong thing to do, right?
Yeah, I agree, but it feels like people don't even like the thought. Like if I were to ask a girl, like let's say I were to say this. Okay, hey, let's say there was a guy, a creepy dude, who was jerking off to every picture on Instagram. Would you like it if he went up and told you that? They'd say no. But then if I were to ask, would you like it if he was doing that? They'd probably still say no.
Yes, yeah, but I think that the action, that's fine, right? But we don't want to live in a world where you control. Let me think about this. Give me a second.
Destiny, earlier you said that you should be in full control of what goes on in your mind with no consequences, right?
Yeah.
Does that still apply if people can mind read?
Probably. Because you don't have to mind read my mind.
What if?
How do you distinguish it, Stephen? I mean, because I'm
I don't know. I'm representing the other side of the argument for you. I don't know the right answer for any of this. It feels like there's a special thing that we. So here's the thing, okay? I don't like it when people think certain things about me, okay? I don't like it when somebody thinks I'm a soy boy fuck, right?
Yeah, okay,
and somebody would say kick rocks, and I say I don't like it when you think I'm a bad debater. Kick rocks.
Yeah,
I don't like it.
No.
But if I say I don't like it when you think about like brutally fucking me in the ass and you have these detailed rape fantasies of me, people are like, yeah, true. They shouldn't think that. So it feels like there's some special boundary around sexual things where it's like I can dictate the terms of your mind sexually,
but only there.
Yeah,
but,
why?
But that doesn't make sense. But that doesn't make sense because I think you got it right. Like. I would be upset and mad if I knew that you thought that I was an asshole, right? I don't want you to even think that, Stephen. But I think when we're talking about wrong things, something that is wrong, I think most of the time we're talking about some action that has effects on other people, or could have effects on other people. Because if otherwise, we're living in a world where we're saying like your very thoughts are bad, and I don't think that's how people. Well, I guess sometimes people talk that way.
Yeah, but like for this deep fake stuff, if you made deep fake porn only for yourself, I think most people would still think it's wrong.
And let's say that you only watched it in a skiff in a place where it's not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's kind of like the because it's not a Destiny stream without a crazy analogy. I think it's similar to how we view child porn. Not view it directly because of course none of us here would ever do that, but in that like
this is a disgust.
Yeah,
whether or not it's.
And even if we had like an argument where it's like this is already created, it won't lead to anywhere future harm, it won't make the person want to rape children, etc., etc. Even if you run down all those arguments, most people would still say just viewing it, period, is bad, even if there is no extra harm.
Even if there's no production harm.
Yeah.
Even if there's no even if it's all just digital, even, right?
Yeah. Possibly.
You would say it's bad, and even if you said something like. And this will.
Sure. Yeah, we don't need equality. Yeah, we get rid of all the bad external effects or whatever. Yeah, it feels the same with the deepfake porn. Like even if you were like, I only view it on my own, nobody else sees it.
Like, what if you said it had positive effects? Now, instead of saying that you're getting rid of the negative,
it becomes way more complicated, but it moves away from the interesting part because now we're talking about like weighing pros and cons. When really, I want to talk about should this be a con at all? Should it be? Is it a bad thing? If somebody sexualizes?
I think there can be a lot of things that. That look you have to bite the bullet on. If there is some action that has no negative consequence as a given, right? You're saying it's a given that there's no negative consequence, and you're defining consequence. I assume to mean.
Well, I'm going to say it's a given. There's no negative consequence because if there is negative consequences, then obviously it shouldn't be allowed. But then we get away from the interesting part of like why is a deepfake bad? Should a deepfake not be allowed? Into just like well, this is harming someone, so of course it should be. Banned, right?
So if something is not harming anybody, not even the person consuming it, right? Because you could look at it.
Yeah.
and it's not changing their behavior at all, except for the 30 minutes they would have spent on sexual gratification elsewhere. They're using it there, so there's not even a loss in efficiency of any kind. I think you have to say that there's nothing wrong with it unless and the truth is that we don't live in that universe, and that the reality is by even encouraging this market to exist, you're going to have leakage, and you're going to have examples of these that do not fit the model where they're accounting for all the negatives.
I understand,
right?
but that's the hard part of the conversation. If we solve that and we say, okay, well, intrinsically, it doesn't matter. You don't have a right to dictate what somebody masturbates to. If they want to have the most detailed fantasy view ever, it's whatever. They can draw pictures, they can do whatever. You can't control that. But then if we say, well, but there could be some leakage effect and that's harmful, then we get into justifying.
That's the rationale for the child pornography stuff, right?
Well, but I don't like to talk about child porn because that's such a unique thing, right?
It is unique.
So, for instance, I can watch murder gore, which in my opinion is more extreme than child porn. But I can go and watch people getting fucking destroyed by ISIS in crazy ways, or a ton of other type of murder gore, and that stuff is almost for sure encouraged by more people seeing it because they want people to see that. When the cartel people in Mexico kill people, they want people to see the videos so they see how fucking crazy they are. But we can consume that without question for some reason. There's very few people saying that should be made illegal, but child porn is all ultra legal. So the child porn stuff is a special, interesting edge case. Yeah.
Well, I think that there could be a basis for saying that kind of stuff should be restricted, right? Like if we actually thought that allowing it would encourage increased production, I would see the rationale very similar, and I think that you agree with that.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, I'm just saying for most people, because people will be against lolicon and shit, and it's why do you care if people jerk off to cartoons? And it's maybe they'll go.
Actually, I think that you would think that it matters how people would react to it. It matters if it increases production of something that is not complying with the safety goals.
I don't think most people think that. I don't think people genuinely believe the argument that I'm against lolicon because those people are going to go out and rape kids in the real world. Because if I were to pose a question, okay, let's say that I knew 100% that if you jerked off to lolicon, you would never rape a kid. Would you be okay with it? They'd still say no, it's gross, it's creepy, it's weird, it's sexualizing children. They'd still be against it. I think that's a red herring.
That can be fine, but people then they're just inconsistent if you push them on it, and we don't want it. They can be inconsistent, but we shouldn't be inconsistent. And I think the truth is if you have a bad thought in your head that doesn't manifest anything, it doesn't even make your day worse. You just a brief second that you're God damn, I hate this guy. I think that it would be weird for us to say that's an immoral thing to do. Even if it was if you had a thought in your head that was a vicious, even a viciously horrific with sexual connotation thought against someone for a brief second, it doesn't affect you at all other than the moment in which it happens. Would you say that's a wrong thing to do?
No, I don't think any thought should ever be wrong, right? That's my position.
Okay. Sorry, the conversation got interesting again. And then I think I figured it out. I kind of wrote it down, so I'm just going to read it quickly and then you guys can tell me what you think. So it feels like instead of taking a no, please respect my boundary. I don't want you to physically depict me in that way. People have an entitlement of, no, I can depict you however I want, and I will go out of my way to depict you in this way, right? So you're doing an extra action. And if you're willing to go out of your way to depict someone in that specific context, it feels like something that can easily spill over to why not try to take nude photos or panty shots or go through all your images or every single time you're on camera in public to create some sort of creepy collage of you being nude, because I feel I should be entitled to do that instead of just taking I don't want physical depictions of me in that way. Because I think most people would say oh yeah, if it was just a fantasy in your head, whatever, I don't like that, but I wouldn't say it's wrong. But if you're going out of your way to make it as realistic as possible, I think that's when people start taking an issue with it.
Yeah, I understand what you said. Okay, real quick, let me just knock down a couple of these real quick. So the easily spill over, I don't think you believe or care about that. Because if I were to tell you that, let's say there's 0% chance that any of this ever spills over into any more action, would that change your thoughts on this at all?
I think it would, but I just don't think that's reality. So it's hard for me to conceptualize that.
No, you should be able to. I mean, I think that I agree with you, Pixie. I think it does. The fact that I know that it probably will spill over probably changes my decision on whether there should be regulation.
Wait, what is the spill over? That if somebody's making deep fakes, they're more likely to try to...
That there's that I think that there's a harm caused probably by deep fakes in that way.
Wait, I don't know what the spillover is. I don't know what is the spillover.
That
a natural inclination to sexualize and objectify.
No.
No. That's not a spillover. Those are still
I'm
thoughts.
talking about like I'm in the world I'm envisioning. I think there's a legal use of deepfakes and probably even a legal use.
I'm just trying to figure out what is the spillover.
Yeah, in order to explain that, I have to tell you this.
Okay.
I promise. In my world that I'm envisioning, there's a world in which there's properly made deepfake stuff, which either has the consent of the person or identifies itself as the deepfake, that it's a deepfake and not a real thing, and there's like some kind of watermark. I don't know, something like that. And a world in which I could see a world in which encouraging the legal market might increase spillover of unauthorized and non-compliant deepfakes. Does that make any sense?
No, I don't know what the difference is between a compliant deepfake and a non-compliant deepfake. If you don't want deepfakes at all, they're all non-compliant, no? Or what's it?
People use that argument for like legalizing sex work, encouraging more sex work to happen as well.
Right. Yeah. That if you've never heard this argument before, Stephen, that like if you would make legal prostitution.
No, but that's meaningfully different because like prostitution involves another living human being, and you can traffic a living human being, and that's what makes that bad. But for deepfakes, you can make a deepfake. You can't traffic a deepfake. I don't understand that. I don't think the comparison.
Well, no, it's really easy. The comparison is really easy. So there would be, under a regime of legal prostitution, there would be a set of prostitution that's totally above board.
Wait, no analogies. Just keep it on the deepfake. I'm just trying to figure out what is the spillover of the deepfake. What is the negative stuff that can start happening?
So authorized deepfakes and unauthorized deepfakes. Deepfakes that are compliant with.
What is an unauthorized deepfake?
Set of restrictions. I was trying to explain to you that I think that there should be a world in which deepfakes exist, but that they're restricted and they're regulated in some way, and that you could envision.
Yeah, I don't think you're not saying anything of substance right now. Okay, hold on. Macro, back up. Hold on, wait, back up. Okay, fuck. I don't know the registration legalization.
He's saying you make your own deepfake, or someone makes one of you. The one
that
you make is fine. Other people's isn't.
Wait, is that what you're saying?
I'm saying, right, that I think that you could justify some restrictions. One example might be that, like, deepfakes that you authorize are allowed. Is that Cherry that just said that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be an example. You don't have a problem at all, right, with authorized deepfake?
Well, but that's where we're at right now. If somebody authorized a deepfake right now, it would be okay.
Yeah. So I am just setting. I'm saying that if we have this world in which deepfakes exist at all. Or if we want to introduce additional restrictions, like there should always be a watermark under a deepfake as part of a legal requirement or some kind of regulation, that maybe someone could argue back and say, well, even allowing it with restrictions as intended or as made, you're just going to increase the amount of unauthorized deepfakes. Unauthorized as in not having the watermark or not having the authorization. You still don't understand.
Yeah, you're saying that if we allow deepfakes, then people might make deepfakes that we don't want to be allowed? That sounds like an argument against literally every single thing on the internet ever.
I'm not saying that I agree one way or the other. I'm just saying that it's possible that if we allow deepfakes with some restrictions, it could be the case that some allowing
You're basically talking identity theft.
Well, but don't we then, shouldn't we ban all porn?
Listen, I'm just saying that that's a factor to consider, right? If you think that allowing any pornography is going to increase the amount of illegal pornography exponentially, I think that you would agree that we should ban all porn, but that's not the world we live in, right?
Well,
I mean, it kind of is. The
decriminalization and legalization argument is that, well, not the whole reason, but a main portion of it is that if it is legalized and regulated, it's much easier to, like when Backpage went down, there was a huge drop in the ability to find people who were being trafficked because Backpage was working with law enforcement when you could report things as being trafficked. So if there are like, quote unquote, like legal deepfakes, and there's like a system for those, maybe it would make it easier to police the non-consensual deepfakes?
Maybe. Okay, wait, hold on, back up. Wait, hold on.
That's not what I want. That's not what I want.
Yeah, hold on, back up. Okay, if we're saying that we don't want to legalize deepfakes because some legalized deepfakes will lead to some illegal deepfakes, I feel like you could apply that argument to all of porn. Go ahead.
You're being stupid right now. I'm so sorry, Stephen.
I'm being stupid?
I'm saying is that yes. All I'm saying is that whether or not having an industry for something would increase bad deepfakes is a relevant consideration. It could be the case that that's never proven or that's not able to be
Sure, but
proven.
that's at like the application level, but we're like still at the ethical level, right? We might be able to ethically say that that like viewing child porn is whatever, so we don't care. But at the application level, that like viewing child porn encourages the creation of more child porn, therefore we should ban it. So it's not the consumption necessarily that's unethical;
Yeah,
it's the downstream effects, right? But we're not even at the downstream effects yet. We're trying to figure out if deepfakes period are okay or not okay. So why are we at the application
We
level?
could make this
Pixie
less
said- all
controversial
Pixie
and talk about kink porn, like consensual and non-consent.
Sure.
All Pixie was saying was something to the effect of like, it's hard for me to envision a world without with the consequences and with the restrictions and the hypothetical constraints that Destiny's imposing, because I have to think of the world that exists. And I say, all I said was like, I would probably agree with you that the real world couldn't exist with some of the things that Stephen is equalizing. But if we're engaging with the hypothetical, we have to consider the world as presented. That's all I was saying, and that one of the considerations might be any kind of spillover of. That's how I understood it, but maybe I'm mistaken.
Well, the spillover that I'm imagining, or basically the reality that I'm imagining, is that it makes me feel really unsafe, or I guess like gross in a way, to think that if we have a future where it's easy to make like deep fake porn, like having to essentially go out in a burqa or some shit in the fear that whenever somebody takes my image, they might create photorealistic porn. And even though in theory you say you're going to keep it to yourself, like it still has a possibility of somebody else like being on your computer, finding it, sending it, etc., etc. Yeah. So it seems like to me like that a future where deepfake porn is okay, like people just do it, whatever. Then you're suddenly like having a huge like percentage of women in the population that if they don't want to be non-consensually objectified, they basically have to cover up 24/7.
Yeah, but like for this, like this is gonna come off as hella sexist. I would just say that like now we're catering to like women's delusions of male sexuality in terms of how we should construct all of society. Like when like.
Well,
the reality is that like a lot of men are jerking off to a lot of pictures at all points in time. There might be a large population of the women in the world that like delude themselves into thinking it's not. I've argued with women that say when they do their OnlyFans it's artistic and that like guys are looking at it for artistic reasons. Like but I don't think that we should construct like our moral like foundation of like this is right or wrong based on like how well women are able to delude themselves on how men do themselves in society.
She's just saying that she doesn't believe that your world exists. That where the ethical consumption of this stuff would exist such that it wouldn't be at risk of, because you said one of the things would be, let's say that you only consume it and no one else consumes it, no one knows about it, people would still think it's bad. And she's saying, like, I just don't think that a world would exist in which that happens. That it would lead to more, the deep fake would be released or something.
Well, I'm also saying you can say like people are always jacking off to women, but there's a difference between like just jacking off to someone and going out of your way to always have them like sexually available or have them in a sexual context one way or another.
Is it?
So there's a difference. Yeah, I do think there's a difference. There's
I don't think so.
I think there is a strong difference between like going on somebody's like Instagram or whatever, and then taking pictures of women you see in real life and getting like different positions or angles to try to create the most like possible real deepfake.
Yeah, but you have no idea.
What do you mean you have no idea? Like,
you would have no idea. You would never know one way or another how somebody's engaging with that content. As long as they don't contact you and tell you or anything, it's just.
Well, it seems like women would still be in a constant state of paranoia because depending on how I don't know the right word, spread this becomes, or depending on like how constant it is or how much of it ends up being in the future, it seems very easy to imagine a world where people are just like fucking constantly paranoid that they're going to become the subject of that. They can't literally exist in a public space without someone, trying to create the best deepfake porn possible of them.
Yeah, but I mean, like that's kind of already the world that like exists. Like I think you just have to accept it and be like, yeah, people are going to try to masturbate to shit I see and think about me and sexualize me. Like that's just how it is.
Yeah, but there's a difference between.
Steven, you do not believe that because you think that on balance, I heard you say today, 60% of you thinks that the deepfake stuff is wrong. And so and I know that you don't think that the masturbating by yourself and just fantasizing is the same thing. And so how do you square those two in your head? You think they're different. And so how can the world be the same?
Hold on. First of all, you can't ask me for my particular thoughts and then appeal to like a pull of chat. Those are two fundamentally different things. What question are you asking me?
No. You said 60% of Steven thinks that it's probably wrong. The deepfake stuff is wrong. And that 40% thinks it's okay. Then how can you, if on balance you think it's probably wrong?
I don't know if I think it's. Wait, what are you getting this that I think it's wrong?
Didn't you say that you think the deepfake stuff is wrong?
I'm not
Did
sure.
you say on balance? 60%?
This is like all like I haven't like this is something I'm figuring this out. I don't have a strong opinion on this at all. I could easily be argued in any different way. Jesus. Fuck, I forgot what the initial question was.
I thought I heard you say, and I could be wrong with that you were leaning 60%. It's wrong.
Oh, I'm just saying. I feel like there's an intuitive repulsion towards it, but I don't know if that should make it wrong or not.
Oh, so you you were just saying that people have an intuitive 60%
maybe, or yeah, I think there was a notepad where I was writing out like things that we intuitively feel like are okay or not okay, like taking a private picture of somebody's probably not okay.
What do you feel? I mean, like, what is your intuition? That it's the same as just fantasizing, or that it's meaningfully different?
My intuition is that it feels meaningfully different, but when you try to justify
so then how can you say it's the same world that we're living in? That if the world that we're living in...
if you let me say 4 more words, you would have figured it out.
Sorry,
okay, yeah. I said my intuition is that it feels meaningfully different, but upon further investigation, it doesn't seem like it actually is. Like...
Oh, well.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Wait, can I finish? I want to finish what I was
wait,
gonna say
wait, hold on. No, not for like 15 minutes, okay? Let's finish, because we're gonna, it's like, can I ask a question? What if like 2 twins fuck animals, and the animals, unless you have something that's hyper relevant to this exact
No,
like
this
line
is hyper relevant.
Okay, Pixie, do your thing first, and then Forethought, you can ask your thing.
Okay. So the reason why that argument isn't very convincing to me, that's like, oh, people like sexualize you anyways, is I feel like there is a very different lived experience between women who, like, let's say live in the United States, and let's say women who like live in India, where you have to take separate or fucking buses, or separate train cards because men are constantly trying to get like some sort of like panty shot or some sort of like sexual shot of somebody who's in there, right? And it seems like to me, if people feel entitled to just have like the sexual, as realistic, as close to possible gratification of the woman as they possibly can, it would lead to more behavior on that end versus just like, okay, no, like do it at home, like leave yourself, like be alone when you do it versus like
sure. Wait, let's ask this question, okay? Let's say that you could demonstrate that if people did the deepfake stuff, they never tried to take those creep shots again because they didn't need to. They could just go home and have like an even better deepfake version of whatever they could steal on a bus.
Yeah, sure. I would feel a lot better about that, but I don't think that's reality. I feel like it just leads to more like entitlement because you want to get as realistic as you possibly can. That's we just admitted it earlier. We just talked about it. That was like, oh yeah, like if they could, they would literally just have a nude of the woman, but they can't do that, so they go for the deepfakes instead. But the second that they could, they would do that.
Yeah, but that's true of everybody already. If they could have a nude of somebody they thought that was hot, everybody would already, every single male, 99% would already say, yes, I want that picture.
I don't want to say something that's going to sound completely random. So do you think most men, or do you think this is unchangeable? Do you think this is just a quality of most men? Let
her ask the question. Holy shit. Sorry, go ahead.
If they could have, like, let's say sex with a woman that they know doesn't want to have sex with them, but the woman's never going to find out, you think most men would be like, okay, yeah, we should do that? Or do you think that's something that maybe most men would say yes to, but that's just their society? Or what do you think?
I think most people would say yes if you didn't phrase it in the way we had to like rape them.
Well, yeah, no, it's
like, let's say if you phrase it, let's say there's a magical pill you could give somebody, and for 24 hours they would want to have sex with you, and then afterwards they'd wake up the next day, and then they would forget everything, and they'd be chill. There's no trauma. There's no any weird pregnancy or any shit like that. 100%. I think most people, if they thought about it, I think most men would take that.
No, but let's say it's like straight up rape. Like they're asleep. Like they're asleep.
Straight up
they won't
rape.
Feel
that
it,
would
they won't notice.
No. That would significantly decrease. Like probably less than 10% of guys.
Okay, because why do you think that's the case?
Because you're raping somebody that's kicking and screaming, and it would feel fucking...
No. They're asleep. They're asleep. They're asleep. When they wake up, they're not gonna have any memory of what happened whatsoever. It's gonna be like if nothing happened to them.
So you're having sex with somebody and they don't want it, but you don't know, or you just know that they wouldn't say yes.
They take a sleeping pill.
That's horrible. Yeah, I don't think most people would do that.
I don't think most people would do that. No. Okay.
Why do you think most people wouldn't do that?
Because it would feel like rape.
But yeah, but what I'm essentially asking you, like, okay, so people do value consent to a certain degree, right? Yes.
For some actions.
For some things.
Yes, exactly. For some things. So I feel like in a society where, you know, people are expected to have sexual gratification regardless of what the other person feels or thinks, and like can make it their problem by constantly like harassing them, trying to take photos, trying to make as realistic as a deepfake as possible.
Wait, hold on. You mixed so many things in there. Hold
Okay,
on.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, wait. When you say
connected.
harass them and all of that, and then you say and make deepfake photos of them, those are two wildly, even in your world, those are wildly different things.
No. My argument is that they would like try to like follow the person or try to take as many photos as possible, which I would consider a form of harassment, so that they could then make the deepfake.
Well, all of us already agree. First of all, this already happens to celebrities, but secondly, all of us would agree that that's wrong.
Yeah. So I feel like
No, not just that it's wrong, that it should be illegal, and that it should be a crime to do that.
I don't know about a crime. I don't know.
But a crime to like harass someone. There's
to harass
harassment.
someone, yeah, but like are paparazzi illegal even though they harass people? Like,
I think there's probably some play on the joints for the free speech issue and like photographing people in public, like, but like if you're going to someone's home and or like let's say you're trespassing on their home, or you're following them at all hours of the day and putting them in fear.
Yeah, of course. We would all agree that's wrong.
The point that I'm trying to make here is that it seems like if we live in a society where people are okay with deepfaking the photos, trying to get as close as they can to the sexual real thing, it seems like the next logical step is like, okay, when I have an opportunity to get even closer to that, I'm going to take the next step to get even closer there.
But the intuition could be reversed. The intuition could be the opposite.
Well,
I saying that there's less of a need for it because now all you need is a good picture of their face.
Yeah, no, this is we're circling back to like basically the child porn arguments, which honestly I don't know how to reconcile because I feel like there's no data on this whatsoever. So it's just it's a moral hazard. That's literally what it seems like to
I'm
be.
not sure the consent framework is very useful in this case. I don't know about you. I just like not every
because we don't have to have consent to fantasize about somebody. That's the thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is, fine. But the point is there's a difference between just fantasizing about someone and trying to take tangible steps into making that fantasy a reality.
You keep saying that phrase, but it doesn't make sense. Take steps to make it a reality.
Because you are putting you're putting the person's face onto the freaking video, making it as realistic as
the
possible.
reality is having sex with the person, not making a better fantasy of the person.
Well, that's the thing. What's the step right before? Like, it's not just fantasy.
No, wait. Hold on. The step here, it's totally, your intuitions, I think, on this are totally backwards. So making the most deepfake, realistic, photorealistic, I do analysis from 3D government CIA satellites, that wouldn't be as close a step as, say, visiting a city where the person's in the hopes you'll see them publicly. That would be taking steps towards making it a reality. That's taking steps towards like making this a reality. The most fantastic deepfake thing ever, that's not a step in that direction at all. You're going down a totally different path. But if I like go to a convention where I think that person's gonna be, or if I try to get in the same friend group as that person or show up at the same restaurant, that's taking steps towards making it a reality, I think.
Okay, maybe my intuitions on this are reversed because I feel like you can do those things in a non-sexual context, but I feel like once you start constantly viewing this person in this sort of frame of light, then the next tangible step, if you don't think you're going to get a chance to hang out with them, be their friend or whatever, would be to try to get more pictures of them at different angles so that you could create the best deepfake for yourself. Right? Assuming that you can't be friends with this person, be in their group, whatever.
That's an argument against paparazzis and unauthorized photos.
Yeah, Pixie, wouldn't this put so many OnlyFans girls like at such risk, like to your standard?
What do you mean?
Because you say that it would go from deepfake to they start trying to take pictures like under your skirt to they start trying to get like nude photos of you while you're sleeping, and then once they get that, they're obviously just going to want to rape you.
I mean, that does happen, but
just from nude photos of you to rape?
Well, we're not just saying any nude photos. We're saying literally creating deepfake porn of you.
Yeah, no, but I think what you're getting at.
You're looking at deepfake as like the first cigarette. You're saying like, well, once they take a hit of this, they're gonna be addicted to nicotine, and then they got to go all the way.
Yeah, and that's what people say about OnlyFans.
Yeah.
I think a certain type of person will have proclivities to do that, regardless of whatever kind of media they consume about a person. And I feel like that's just a risk with any kind of media you put out there. But I think maybe it is possibly worse with deepfakes. But I'm not actually that.
We have no reason to believe that, right? Like that's true.
Yeah, I think it's really just like certain people will be obsessive fans no matter what.
See, what is the difference between a very vivid sexual fantasy of someone and a deepfake to you?
It seems like you have to put literally more effort into creating the deepfakes, like software-wise, like rendering it, making it, finding the.
Would that be like the first cigarette then? Is the
I think
fantasy?
it's the first. What is it? Yeah, I think in terms of like level of effort, it's kind of like the first. If you're willing to put that much effort into consuming porn of someone versus imagining it, it seems like it's going to be easier to put, or like there's less of a barrier to effort to other actions.
Why does effort matter? I mean, effort on the person who wants the gratifications part. Why are we considering their effort level when talking about this at all? Like, I don't understand.
People
I
making
don't.
deep fakes aren't putting in effort. That's not like the effort part is the engineers. They've already made the website.
Well, yeah, but
they've
that's who we're
already made the
talking about,
software.
obviously, right? Not just a person
Like,
downloading it.
okay, but even if it took no effort, does that change anything? I mean, I would think that people would be like you said, Stephen. Like, people would be upset if they put effort or not. People would be upset if a lot of people saw it or just one person saw it.
Well, I feel like people care about that shit because of the whole like overarching like social phenomenon that is tied into it, right? The whole idea of like what's gonna happen afterwards. Every time I'm gonna come out, like somebody gonna
I
try
disagree.
to do this shit to
I
me.
think the uncomfortable part is I think people want to be able to dictate other people's thoughts. I think that's where it starts and stops. I think that everything else I think is post hoc, where people try to think, well, maybe it makes it unsafe for me, blah, blah, blah. But I think it's just the thought that a person that you know might be like masturbating to or whatever. I think that thought is gross. And if somebody's finding like more efficient ways of doing it, whether it's looking at pictures of you deep faking things or looking at public pictures or whatever, I think that thought in and of itself is, I think that's like 90% of the discomfort.
This is kind of what I was
I
getting at
agree. That's why I
earlier
think
about-
that. Sorry, good.
It's just about how you want to be able to define the context of how you're perceived, whether it's like sexually. I don't think it's just sexually. I think it's like if you're like, there's like some
Yeah, it's not
meaningful
just
song
sexual,
with a
but the
dead
sexual
person.
thing
Yeah.
is like, it's a special category of
It can be
thing.
it can be hot button, but I think it all comes down to like you want to be able to dictate the context of how you're perceived towards other people. And in some contexts we can, but in this context, is it okay to?
Isn't it a little weird, like in the opposite direction, where, like, we assume that if someone looks like looks at a naked picture, that they're gonna need to have sex with that. That feels really like
That is an assumption.
like
I
a
think
leap.
I think that's an assumption in Pixie's argument, and I think.
I mean, I don't
honestly,
think that's
yes.
true for. Sorry, I'll let you finish. Yeah, continue.
I think it's an assumption in your argument that the picture will lead to a given action is an assumption in your argument, and that could be true. The picture could lead to a given action, bad or good. I think Steven's argument probably is closer to money, which is people don't want to be sexualized. People don't want to feel as though they're being used as a sexual object, and in that case, the deepfake aspect to it is totally not essential. The deepfake thing is just the new ground on which to fight the ongoing fight over the sexualization of women and sexuality in general and thoughts and whether or not it should be problematic to have these thoughts.
I don't know. Maybe there is just two things. I don't think it's just a picture. I think it's purposely like going out of your way to consume that content. That's something different for me.
Wait, what do you mean by going out of your way? What do you mean by that?
I mean, like going out of your way to, let's say, like find a deep fake porn site and then like find the specific streamer or whatever.
Wait, so hold on. Let's say that we eliminated that aspect of it, and let's say that like there was just a website full of deepfakes where people just randomly deepfake like people from photos publicly. Like, do you think that would be okay? I feel like this part doesn't matter at all for you, the effort part.
Well, the reason why I say the effort part matters for me is why can't you just use your imagination? Like, why do you have to find the photorealistic porn? Why can't you just like keep it in your head? Why do you have to?
Then why? Well, what do you mean? Because additional stimulus is always going to feel better, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. Like you are putting your additional stimulus like above the fact that like I guess women don't want to
control your thoughts.
Well,
yeah,
no.
of course.
Wait, no, because I'm saying if you want to jack off in your head about whatever, go for it. But then once you start putting it into like a physical reality to try to get as close as you can, it seems only logical that you would want to take more steps to get it even closer.
Why is that logical?
Yeah, I don't think that's logical. I think that's a separate train of action.
Okay.
I mean, technically, if you want to appeal,
true,
if you want to appeal
evidence.
even empirically, I think Portugal was the biggest country where they like legalized a whole bunch of different porn, and I think a whole bunch of sex crimes dropped across the board. I don't know if those are causally linked or not, but I'm pretty sure in most places when you legalize stuff like that, I'm pretty sure like sex crimes and stuff start to fall.
But I don't think you should. I'm gonna start like going in circles, or it's gonna start seeming like it's not all in line. I don't think you should ban all porn. Let's be clear on that.
Yeah, but
think-
I don't see how you don't think that if you think deepfakes are walking you down a certain direction, I don't know why porn in general isn't walking you down.
Because deepfakes is allowing you to like having specific access to someone that you otherwise like wouldn't have access to because they wouldn't have consented to.
What do you think the consent part is? Oh God, sorry.
When people do porn, generally speaking, they're consenting to being viewed that way. When it comes to deepfakes, the person is not consenting to be viewed that way. And now you're gonna go back to like, huh?
They're not doing that in the fantasy.
Yeah, they're not doing it in either one. But the point is, you're taking like even a step further to violate that consent versus the other one. It seems to me like there's a difference of degree here.
If we in the future had a chip that helped us visualize things in our brains better, do you think then that's okay to start fantasizing with that to help us?
I'd have to think about it more.
I don't think your issue is with the effort level here. I think it's intrinsically baked into the idea that just because you're a part of society, you, like everyone else, gets to sexually objectify you, and that's my issue.
I think and maybe this is just a personal disconnect for me, and I have to reevaluate and everything. But I know people jack off to me, whatever. I know everybody like does that to other people. But it makes me like really uncomfortable to think, okay, they couldn't just keep it in their heads. They had to they tried to make it some sort of physical reality, or they tried their best to get as close to possible as that. Instead of just being content with their heads, they had to try to find a physical manifestation of it.
Why it just feels like it's a jump from one to the other, like naturally. If somebody's like masturbating thinking of a person, if they could like find a picture close to that person, they'd be more like, how many times do people link porn and shit and like, oh, I like this person because it's like they look just like that one fucking actress, or they look just like this person or whatever. Like it seems like people are gonna do that if they're fantasizing. I don't understand how somebody could be upset about like one thing but not about the other thing. Like if somebody's gonna jerk off thinking of me, of course they're gonna find ways to think of things that look closer to me or make a picture that looks like me or whatever.
This is why I go back to the whole like murder example. Like I feel like there's a difference between and you probably would I do think there's a difference between just thinking about murdering someone and then going out of your way to start buying the materials for it.
Well, of course, I would agree with that. Wait, do you think I would disagree with that?
Huh? So you'd agree with me on that? That there's a difference between just thinking about murdering someone and buying the materials to do so?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Well, doesn't it show a lot more intent if you start buying the materials?
Well, that's to me, yeah. That's I feel the same, like a similar way about the deepfake porn.
But buying the materials to murder someone is buying. When you buy materials to murder somebody, you don't get the satisfaction of murdering somebody. Jerking off to deepfake porn gives you the orgasmic satisfaction of sexually fantasizing about the person. Buying the materials aren't an end to themselves. But
I don't think the satisfaction happens until you have sex with the person. That's why it's like.
That like betrays the entire all the porn industry that's ever existed. I don't think people jerk off to porn thinking like, I'm not gonna be satisfied until I fuck this actual porn actress. Yeah, but I think
that's why her views on porn are different from her views on this deepfake thing.
But then they would just be wrong because people don't jerk off to porn thinking
I'm not
like
saying they're right.
Well, sure, but I'm saying like people don't. Yeah, I don't think people jerk off to porn thinking eventually one day I'm gonna fuck this porn star. I don't.
No, but they want to eventually have sex. No, didn't you say that earlier?
Sure, have sex with somebody. Sure.
Yeah, so it's like
but that doesn't come from porn. Like we always want to have sex. It's not like the porn created that drive. Like I think sex is pretty natural that everybody wants to have it. I think generally.
You don't think people? But didn't you say earlier that people want to have porn? People want to have sex with those specific porn actors.
With specific porn actors, I mean, if they could, but I don't think they take steps to do it. Like if you had like the hottest porn actor,
because they're not accessible, right? The hottest porn actor is not living in your house or living like down the street or anything, but your friends sure are.
Growing up, like boys masturbate to fucking sisters of friends and all sorts of shit for their entire lives. I don't think they take steps to do anything about it. I don't
think people hit on like their friends and shit. Like
I don't think people take steps to fuck people, like to rape people. At least they might like hit on somebody, sure, but I don't think they're like taking damaging steps just because they fantasize about somebody. No.
Okay.
Is that wrong to like fantasize about someone and have attraction to them?
No, I don't think it's wrong. I just think it's wrong when you're
manifest it. You said right, like.
But when you're when a person has clearly shown that they are not okay with it or whatever, I think it's wrong to take steps to make it as close to reality as you possibly can.
Oh, you keep using that phrase.
Okay, I know.
And it doesn't make any sense.
I don't know how else to phrase it. I'm trying my
You're not
best
getting
here.
close. The reality is fucking them. Deep fakes are not reality. Making the
No,
best deep
I
fake in the world is not
know.
getting any closer to the reality. Sorry, God.
Okay, wait, but it kind of is, because now you got to view them in that intimate way that they didn't want you to see
But
them.
you didn't view them in an intimate
That's
way.
a technicality. Your intent is to view them in that way.
No,
your
your
brain is
intent
not
is
processing them as separate.
I think it would be. It'd be way different having a candid. I think your brain just processes those things incredibly separately.
When somebody makes a deep fake, oh, I don't want to use any streamer names. Okay, a deep fake porn of a streamer. When they're jacking off to it, are they really thinking, oh, this is just the streamer's face on this separate body? Or do you think they're viewing them as, oh, this is basically the streamer?
Nope, I think they're viewing it as a deep fake. And here's the example I would use, and I would bet my whole life savings on this, okay? If I, on one hand, could show somebody a video of the best fucking deep faked Pokemon or Alinity or whatever fucking streamer, the best deep fake video in the world, versus kind of shitty low res, but like candid shots that somebody captured of the person, they would go for the candid, shitty low res shots 10 out of 10 times, every single time. They would say, I want the shot where I could barely see her fucking butt a million times over the best deepfake video in the world, because the authentic image would be more important to them. I guarantee it, 1,000,000%.
No, but the point is that when they're jacking off, the whole reason why it has, like, let's say Pokey's face on it to begin with is because they are visualizing it as Pokey. Otherwise, it would have been like, there's no reason to put her face on it.
There's like a fantasy of it, but it's still not the thing itself.
No, but the point is that it's like, I feel like I'm getting lost. The point is that is as close as they possibly can get at that moment, because they're not going to be in her friend circle. They're not going to be in her friend group. They're not going to be in her manager. They're probably not going to live in the same city. So this is the step that they're going to take instead.
Well, sure, it's like jerking off to porn of them. But I just don't like calling it close to the thing itself, because the thing itself would be fucking them. But okay, yeah, we're circling. Okay. What?
Okay, can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah, what?
Okay, it seems like so this is like just a half-formed idea. This is not my take yet, but it seems like deepfakes are a unique attack on like sexual identity of someone, because usually when you're participating in porn voluntarily or involuntarily, there is some sort of agency involved, and it seems like just existing and having porn generated of you is really disturbing for most people in like a visceral kind of way.
Yeah, of course.
Do you disagree? Okay.
Agreed. That could be a basis, I think, for regulation, for sure. I think the mistaken identity thing is a problem. And I think that even though it's not, I probably agree with Steven, it's not 90% the problem, but I think it's the more it gets, I don't know, photorealistic, the more of a problem it's going to be. If you literally cannot tell the difference between a deep fake and something that's real, the identity problem is going to be big, isn't it, Steven?
I'm not even talking about
Obviously.
legally. I'm talking about like how a person would feel with that like their identity being subsumed into something else, because like a lot of the time, like your sexual identity is built around like your behavior, your experiences, and your decisions, and seeing that extrapolated onto like a piece of work seems like gross in a unique
the
way.
consent framework doesn't work for the fantasy, right? You agree with that we would never be like, well, you didn't consent to me sexually fantasizing about you, right?
I'm not talking about consent at all. I'm
I
talking about
understand.
agency.
We're not talking about that here, Pisco, but I actually do think, I think that's where the majority of these opinions come from. I think people don't like to verbalize it that way, but I think in a world where people are being brutally honest, I think most women would say, yes, you should not be able, it should be immoral to fantasize about jerking off to me if I don't want you to, if I don't consent to it. I think most women feel that way.
Most women and Sejin.
Okay.
Did you
I'm
really
gonna
think
go
that's
get ice
Sejin?
cream later?
I really think that.
So then the deepfake thing is just, that's all a distraction.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's what I
I
said
said
initially
that
about the
very
cutie
clearly
thing.
at the
I don't
beginning.
think any of this is actually even about deepfakes that much at all. I think there's other issues at play. Yeah.
I think it has to do with like sexualization and objectification, that kind of stuff, which we've already been dealing with.
Yeah, body dysphoria, being compared to like perfect bodies and stuff like that. I think that's what, yes, all of it has to do
What
with.
is then the different stuff is, because even before the deepfake, Pixie, I think you agree with this. Would you say the same thing about like a photorealistic, artistic painting of someone in a sexual way? Like that's the same kind of things are at play there, right? If you were a really great artist and your friend's sister was around and you made an awesome painting of her, in your opinion, awesome in terms of the photorealistic aspect to it, that would have the same problems.
Yeah, if you're going out of you to make a sex, yeah, I agree. If it's like sexual, I do think that there is nudity that is artistic. I don't think all nudity is sexual, but I think that's besides the point. I think like if it's for sexual gratification, going out of your way to do that is weird, and I think bad, wrong.
I mean, same thing, and you'd say the same thing for like a detailed fan fiction as well, right?
I have to think about that more, but right now I'm leaning towards yes.
And you would say the same thing about a safe for work but sexual cosplay too, right?
A safe for work sexual cosplay of what? What are
Somebody
you saying?
does like a sexy Pokemon cosplay, basically.
Yes, if it's based on a person in real life, yeah.
Yes, like if you do a cosplay, let's say you're doing female streamer cosplay, but like sexy version, right? But it's not explicit. It's just it's a undoubtedly sexual portrayal, but it's quote unquote safe for work. That would be problematic for the exact same reasons the AI generated.
If it's a general streamer cosplay, not problematic. If it's streamer cosplay as in I'm doing a specific streamer, yeah.
So then it really seems like the thing that's consistent across all of these different things is not some kind of like thing that exists forever, right? Because the cosplay, maybe you have photos of it, so maybe that exists forever. But it would be problematic even if no photos were taken. I think you'd say that. The thing that seems consistent is the thought, right? The
well, no, I think
thought.
all of these include effort. If you were just doing it in your head, I think that is so. But I'm not even sure if I want to call it bad. Like, I still have to think about it.
Yeah,
but I feel like
the effort the effort is weird because what if somebody could make flawless deepfakes with almost no effort?
Yeah,
I don't think you'd be okay with it.
If it was just literally one click, you just put in the name of the person. There's a database.
So maybe the right word is just a physical manifestation versus just keeping it in your head.
What's the difference between the physical manifestation on a computer versus like the electrons buzzing around your brain?
No, she would say the computer is physical manifestation. She would say the computer is one. She would say the costume, the cosplay would be a physical manifestation, right? You're physically showing other people in a way that they can see it, right?
Yeah.
So that would be a manifestation of it. It doesn't matter.
Is there just like an inherent link to being sexualized and just having a fear about that? Like knowing that you're sexualized by somebody, do you just feel in fear?
No, I think I know I'm sexualized, so I'm not. That's not the part that bothers me.
So when you say that you know you're sexualized, what you're guessing. I mean, unless someone has specifically gone out of your way to tell you.
She's a girl on the internet, even if nobody DM'd her, it's pretty obvious. Yeah.
Maybe an insight into this is I had an OnlyFans and I had to ban a dude, and then he kept making accounts to get back into it and was taunting me about it. And I didn't really care, obviously, about being sexualized, but I hated that he was trying to find ways to still get that satisfaction. And I feel like there's some sort of similar vibe to, like, people are getting satisfaction that you didn't offer to them.
Yeah, so this is, I'm going to give the big red pill take that I think is actually pretty true here. I think that a lot of what's happening is traditionally men get sex and women give sex. And I think that when a man is getting sexual satisfaction from a woman, she feels like that should only happen if she's giving it to him. So if a man finds a way to get some kind of sexual satisfaction from a woman who doesn't want to give it to them, I think that process in and of itself feels really gross and disgusting. And I think that's why men in general don't care about deep fakes, because like, you jerked off to me, okay, like why would I care? What are you getting from me? Like that doesn't even feel like anything. But I think for women, I think generally there is the feeling of giving sex or giving sexual pleasure gratification to men, whereas men have the feeling generally of taking it. And I think that's where the gross feeling comes from. I think deep down, I think that's my feeling.
I don't know. I think
that doesn't make sense to me.
What part of that didn't make sense?
What giving and getting means for different people.
That in general,
I don't know how men generally feel one way, but women feel another way. I feel like the issue with women and their sexuality and sex, I thought, was like outside societal judgment on them. Like what it means for them to be viewed as sexual or to have given up their body sexually, for other people to value them less. I don't know what else.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's going to be societal thing. Maybe this all comes from society, I guess. But I mean, I can't know that. But I'm just saying that I'm explaining as it is now. Women tend to be the ones that give sex, and men tend to be the ones that pursue sex. So if that dynamic,
maybe that is
What?
Maybe that works for the male side of it too, but I feel like it's also just like wanting to control the context and how you're perceived.
But the question is like, no, because there's something special and different about the sexual thing. Like if I did a comic about you where I made you like an evil racist person, I think it'd be like kind of annoying and stupid. But like assuming that it's not like everybody's not believing it, I don't think you'd care as much if somebody was like deep faking porn of you.
If there was like if I had like a special like funeral rite for like my fucking grandma or something, and people commodified that in some like making fun of it kind of way, I feel like I'd be just as offended as with like a deep fake.
I don't know what any of that meant. A
at
funeral
what
rite
point
to
do we
what?
go
I'm saying
out of
like
that?
if I perceive like a special funeral rite for somebody as like a meaningful important thing, and that's the context that I want to see it in. If somebody took that, and
Hold on, I
changed
don't know
the
what that
context
means.
to
What is a
making fun of
funeral?
it-
What is a funeral rite? What does that mean?
I don't know, like something like I go out in the woods and like play music and light a candle or something, and people are like, "Look at this fucking dipshit out in the woods." Like if I thought it was super fucking meaningful and I want it to be perceived that way, I would be sad if somebody like posted that and was like, "Look at this dumbass."
Sure, but
want,
that's just
like,
that's just like bullying you though, right? That's the mean thing. That's
yeah,
not like
exactly. You want to control the context of how you're perceived, and if somebody is changing that context, it doesn't feel good. Sometimes it's bullying, sometimes it's deepfakes.
sure, but I mean like a guy would not
Sometimes
like
people
that.
are too fragile.
Well, no, I don't think there's well, sure, but like we're trying to figure out like why is there fragility around this particular concept, or why do people feel
Yeah.
bad about this particular thing? But I think guys would feel bad about that too. If a friend died and they had a special ritual or whatever, and then somebody photographed it and made fun of them, that'd be bullying. But I think there's something different about the sexual thing. I think it feels different.
I think maybe I just have a different mindset.
No,
on
I-
that, so
I
maybe I'm not
agree.
the best person to represent that.
Maybe. Well, I mean, if you did
I
OnlyFans
agree
stuff,
with
right,
your
yeah.
with
Yeah.
your difference between how men and women like perceive someone sexualizing them. Like I agree with that, but at what point do we evolve past it? Like how many times do we explain why it feels different for a woman?
I feel like.
Go ahead.
Sorry, you can finish.
Well, I was gonna say
and then-
that might be I don't know, but that might be like a very deeply rooted like feeling that just kind of comes from male versus female biology. Maybe that's something that doesn't like get societally brushed away. That's just always a feeling we kind of have that just stems from the innate differences between us.
I feel like most men would feel similarly if you decided to say like, oh, imagine if there's like the gay community or whatever has a bunch of like deep fakes of you getting like pounded in the ass by whatever. Like I feel like a lot of men would suddenly be like, oh yeah, that would be kind of weird. Like I don't think that's
Yeah,
right.
I thought
Like, I
about
don't
this, but I don't think so. I think it would be funny. I think some very homophobic people might get really angry, but I think in general, I think it would be funny. I think people would laugh. Like if there were, and I think even the public would laugh. If there was a site that opened up where all of a sudden people saw that there were a ton of deep fakes of like me and Hassan fucking each other, like people would laugh. Everybody in LSF would laugh. Probably even me and Hassan would think it was kind of funny, and it would just be like that would be the end of it. But if it was deep fakes of like a lesbian like Twitch streamer couple, it would be like, holy shit, this is like fucking the worst thing ever. It would be way different, I think. I think it would be treated way differently.
I think people would find it funny just because you and Hassan have a contentious relationship. I think most men would feel weird if they found out that their male friends or whatever were making like super realistic porn of them.
You might
But
feel, yeah, there's going to be a weird feeling for sure, but it's different. It's going to be different than like the visceral negative reaction. I don't know why. Oh, true. I don't know why I'm speaking hypothetically. People have already fucking made fanfic and drawn pictures of me and Hassan and shit. That's true. Yeah, I think there's a visceral negative feeling that women have that men don't when it comes to sexual things of this nature.
Would you feel strange if you found out that I feel like I already know the answer to this, but I'm just curious. If you found out that Hassan is making photorealistic porn of you?
Yeah, I would definitely feel weird, but I wouldn't care that much. I was like, that's kind of weird. But that would be it. That would be the end of it.
Pixie, I think if you're looking for a gotcha on men specifically with this take, I don't think it's enough to say like, oh, how would you feel if you had like gay porn made of you or like with deepfakes and stuff like that? I think you have to take it back to how would you feel if there was deepfake porn of your mom or your sister made? Because then I think they could connect it to something that would like viscerally bother them in the same way that it viscerally bothers women immediately.
Yeah, but that just reinforces my point that it's because there's a fundamental difference between the way that men and women give and take sex. So of course I would agree with that, but it's because it reinforces my earlier point.
I'm gonna go now. Bye.
What? Be careful.
Bye.
Do you think that is pretty much impossible to reduce the level of sexual proclivity that men have to engage in like sexual fantasies?
I have absolutely no idea. That I don't know how much of that is because there are a couple of biological things about us that will never change that might downstream influence how we view sex. Two things are, one is men have external sexual organs and women have internal sexual organs. So the act of sex on just a biological level kind of requires a little bit more trust from the woman part because you're having somebody go inside your body, whereas for a man, it's an external process. So that's like one part of it. And the second part of it is the physical strength difference, that a man has never been in a sexual situation with a woman worrying that the woman's going to overpower him or do something, whereas the woman is. So now I don't know the answer to this, but it might be the case that maybe those two biological facts in and of themselves will always heavily inform the pursuer, avoider dynamic when it comes to sex. That might be the case. I don't know if that's true or not, but that might be the case. And if it is, then no amount of societal rewiring or promiscuity of women or like promiscuity of men will ever change that association with sex in terms of like gatekeepers and chasers. Maybe, but
if it was shown that that sexual proclivity could be conditioned out of men in the long run, do you think that it would then make sense to stigmatize sexual fantasization of women?
I mean, if you could show a bunch of downstream positive things from it, maybe we're rewiring a lot of society at that point. I have to think about that a lot. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna head out for realsies this time.
Okay, be
Thanks
careful.
for having me. Bye.
Yep. Bye.